Hey, Fitness of Business listeners. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to tell you about my Substack. It's my free weekly newsletter where I share more real stories, super helpful guides, and templates you can download and implement like today. Head over to leslieboyce.substack.com and subscribe. That's LESLIEBOYCE.substack.com. All right, let's get to the episode. It's pretty well known that if you typically train at sea level, running a race at altitude feels a lot harder. Well, I've had almost the opposite experience. So I live in Denver and I train at high altitude. And whenever I go visit my family in LA down at sea level, I feel like a rock star. My endurance is amazing. And I swear my mile time drops from like 10 minutes to 9. Impressive, I know. But when it comes to lifting at sea level, the weights actually feel heavier and it throws me off every time. In business, it's kind of the same thing. We can feel strong and confident doing our market research in familiar territory, but what happens when you're ready to expand or maybe even take your business international? Today, we're going global. My guest is Julie Lawrie, CEO and co founder of Amplifyo. Amplifyo solves the disconnect of marketing activities from business and financial goals. Their software leverages AI to enhance productivity in marketing while keeping human touch intact and automates campaign creation and content development, as well as provides on demand next step ideas and strategic planning. But before we get to chatting with Julie, every episode kicks off with a listener question in a segment called Hey Coach. So, what's keeping you up at night about your business? What would you ask if you had a business coach in your back pocket? Submit your questions to Leslie@thefitnessofbusiness.com.
Hey, Coach, I have a successful course here in the United States. Recently, I was speaking at a conference and I had some international colleagues ask me about offering services where they're at. What would international expansion even look like?
Well, Julie, welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I mean, that setup with the question is quite timely. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I would actually love to start with just talking about how we met and I actually have to read this because I mess it up every time. It is the global landing pad through the Office of Denver Economic Development and Opportunity. I was a mentor for this program a few weeks ago here in Denver, and I met Julie. And yeah, so I'd love for you to just talk about how you got involved there. Yeah, let's just start there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, there's a long story and there's a short story of that.
Okay.
So, quick intro is that we have our company is wanting to set up in the US, which has then meant that this year we've done a bit of research around where do we land, what do we want to do, and so one of the early connections we'd had was with the Denver Economic Development cohort. And so we knew of them earlier this year. One of our contacts in Denver had said very last minute, I know you didn't apply for the landing program, but they know your company. Does it hurt if very last minute you message and see if there's any spots and do the application process? And so it was very last minute, and purely because they were nudging us along. And yeah, and because we hit all the criteria, because we're a company that's wanting to launch into the US, and Colorado was actually one of the areas we'd narrowed down. We had a short list of where we set up initially.
Yeah.
That's the landing program, and then and it was really because we want all those practical bits around. All right, we're about to hit the ground. What are the things that we need to know and be ready for?
Hmm.
And then what can we have in place to support that journey?
So,
Yeah.
did you start your business with the intention of always wanting to expand globally, or is that something that sort of like came along through the process?
For this software portion of the company, because this has been built off the back of my consulting firm, which we've had since 2013. For the software, yes. So always the intent was to go global. I have to, mention I did live in California for a while, and I think you and I had that conversation.
Yes, we lived in
Like,
virtually the same neighborhood.
Yeah, which at around the same time, which is
It
amazing.
is amazing.
So I feel like we would have crossed paths.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so, knowing the American marketplace, appetite for things. I've done marketing work in the US before as well as, knowing the state of even consulting. I had done some consulting work here too. So it was always on there. A big reason for that was size of market, but also just knowing there's this inherent need. I mean, we track against what's trending in marketplace, you know, what's being supplied out there and other options. And similarly in Australia, we could see a gap.
Yeah.
And so it was Australia's a fantastic place as well. Um, but market size wise doesn't compare to what the US has to offer especially when it comes to small, medium sized companies. So
Yeah. So what is so important to you about working with small and medium-sized companies? Like where does that desire come from?
yeah, I mean that probably comes from the early days of what I'd set up with my consulting firm. I mean, I had started a consulting company because I wanted to make marketing more accessible. So there's a lot of services out there, but they're often priced outside of the realm of small, medium-sized business. And so that idea of going, how do I make that possible and really practical so that you know that you don't have a long tail on having to stick with
Mhm.
something that's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so that was the initial idea in my consulting life. But with our software company, the idea was making it even more accessible. So we've got a SaaS platform that has a very low entry price point at the base that gives you all that you need. That you have an AI marketing manager on tap, but that can do all the things and guide you on your journey. A lot of business owners are not available business hours when a typical advisor or as someone, team members are even there. Um, Juniors, they can ask any question in it without feeling, there's any worry or concern. And the idea is that it sets them up to succeed. So it's not about making us look like the hero, but we want our customers to feel real satisfaction, but it's available at a price point and whenever they need it. So it's an on-demand tool.
Yeah. So I guess I have sort of two follow-up questions to that that go kind of different directions. But one is like what is it about you said that small to medium-sized businesses they don't have the resources necessarily available. They don't have a big team. So like where do you see the biggest sort of gap is in terms of the value of their product versus what they're able to market and actually, get out to the public?
Yeah, and you covered this, I think, earlier as well when you did our intro around the
Mhm.
disconnect. So, there's two parts that from working with hundreds of companies over the years, and that's coming in, and we've had companies referred to us continuously, but local government often has companies that are starting or businesses that are starting, or they're at a point of growth and they just can't kick into the next gear as well, like as in the next revenue level or go beyond break even into profitability and that that's that net profit space that they're really chasing. And so for us, marketing is not something that's to be done in isolation. So it's not an activity that is the vanity metrics, although that's great, but we often find there's an overinvestment in that. And that's one of the gaps. So if we think about revenue generation even, so it's if we think of an income statement or profit and loss statement, above the line activity for a company is important. You've got to be bringing revenue in and it's got to be meaningful. So if you're focused on vanity activities that are disconnected from what you're actually trying to do as a business,
Mhm.
so if you're not defining truly what differentiates you, what your unique selling proposition is, how to do that, and all of the things that you offer relevant to your target audience, you're missing opportunities.
Mm.
You're leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
And then so that if you think about that the revenue side of things, then we bump below when we look at the overhead space. Again, this is what directly impacts our cost and then, bleeds into that profitability. Like how much are we taking home at the very end from profit?
Yeah.
Um, as business owners and operators, that area, if we're underutilizing team or they're not productive because we've not equipped them and set them up really well, or we haven't taken on board the latest opportunities. So, our tech does AI, some of our early processes, we're saving 90% of the time And that means that team members, whoever's working on it, we've got junior marketers, we've got admin team, we've got operating team, we've got business owners, operators doing marketing things. But that's suddenly freeing them up to do better things,
Mm-hmm.
which for me, I think, so that definitely relates to the numbers.
Yeah.
It also relates to doing better marketing because it's in alignment, and that's where the strategic side comes in, not just vanity activities, but then you're using your people in a better way.
Yeah.
And yeah, a part of our, SMEs, SMBs, we have this ability to compete. We're much more agile compared to big companies.
Yeah.
Freeing up time to know your customers, to be able to do other things that are more customer centric for your people is a pretty powerful move.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what we're wanting to empower. So,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's great. My sort of other follow-up question is, you mentioned that there's obviously a need for it, and the market is so much bigger in the US, so that makes sense. But does that also mean there's more competition for other, software services doing what you're doing, and how are you sort of navigating that?
Yeah. Competition, yes, there is. I've got to say, one of the things I love about, there's lots of things I love about America, but one of the things is that you can have more than one player in the market doing a thing because there's so much opportunity and niche. And this is probably a key for anyone entering the market or even in market right now,
Yeah.
just finding your pocket.
Yeah.
So we've mapped out market opportunity, but even from a geography point of view, industry sectors, etc. And we haven't found anyone doing uniquely what we offer.
Hmm.
But it's not to say, if I'm being very realistic, yes, there are things that people would believe are comparable and or could replace it. Yeah, that's just I think in every sector
Yes.
and offering. However, there's enough margin and enough marketplace that it's still a very viable opportunity for us. So
Yeah. Well, I guess speaking of niche and knowing your niche, like, is there like a specific business you have in mind as you are designing this product, or that you did at least initially, that kept you really focused into your niche?
yeah, we have a few sectors that we specialize in, and typically the customers we've worked with the most are B2B.
Mhm.
So and a bit of B2G as well, but we have B2C customers. So we built the platform to be sector agnostic and to work for any type of customer base. But really, sweet spot customer typically sits in a couple of ranges of industry. So are there building construction? So that has a mix of B2B as well as B2C companies. We look at tech type companies. So that could be software, hardware, any just sort of tech related platforms and or hardware, software product, as well as professional services. So that seems to be a sweet spot. Professional services might even be a banner over, a broader range, but that
Mhm.
seems to be sweet spot
Hmm.
for us. There's finance and other companies that care about diligence, and probably another distinctive that we found is companies that have typically had a lot of a sales focus. So they've got a sales team or someone out front who's been doing a lot of that drive, but they need that backup of marketing to
Yep.
validate, because marketing's that continuous thing. I think of it sometimes as a scaffold itself to the
Mm.
sales and business development focus. And that's just someone who's deep in marketing and has done corporate marketing for
Yeah.
years. But part of that is without those core foundations and fundamentals for a company, often the rest of the activities really struggle without that in place. And so there's both foundational components as well as ongoing pieces that we want to keep pushing into the marketplace. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of is a broad area. Sector wise, I could probably keep talking. And then user types, we work with a range of different users. So I think I'd mentioned earlier, we've got junior marketers, we've got people who've been sitting in the role for a while but need to hand it across to other team
Mhm.
members, admin team, operating team, and then of course business owners, operators. So we typically work with that lower end of the small and medium-sized business space from employee count. So under 50 employees is often where there's the biggest need, but
Mhm.
products expand and scaled. So
Yeah. Well, I didn't even prompt you to make the comparison about the importance of building the fundamentals in business. It's exactly what I talk about in this show and in my business is like, you can't do these really highly complex things or compound things if the basics, your core values and your fundamentals and processes and offers and everything are not really solid. You can't really build on that. So thank you
Mm.
for echoing that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I know you from you and I having a conversation that we're very much aligned in our
Yeah.
approach. So that's great.
Yes, yes. So thank you. I do as you're talking about sort of your target demographic, is it the same in Australia and America or did that differ once you started to do your research here?
It is similar.
Mm.
There are some other markets. I mean, from our software point of view, I've mentioned a few times I've come out of a consulting
Mhm.
background. We built in something called multi-tenancy, which means that um, a consultant or an advisor or a coach can have a couple of companies they support at any one time.
Mm.
So that's always been tucked in the back end that we can activate for companies. So when I met you, actually, I was sitting on a panel, and you were sitting on a panel. I was out the front in the hot seat
Yes, apparently I was the
presenting.
expert.
Yes,
Yes, there was
yes.
a lot of
Not
pressure.
apparently, you were the expert, yes.
Apparently.
And
Oh.
so yeah, it was yeah, and also the questions and the challenges and the advice was excellent. And one of the things that emerged from the cohort of, panelists and mentors that were supporting us was, have you considered agencies and other areas? And we had, but we downplayed it a bit
Mhm.
because we said, let's go direct to the customer base. And we're still doing that, but we're now exploring a few more of those opportunities earlier because of the high validation of it.
Mm.
And I have to say, it's been lovely because niche is important. Um, and so we're trying to be really careful with how much time we I don't want to spread too thin at this stage
Yep.
because that does impact performance and output. Um, but really just going, okay, there's something we had prepped for on our roadmap for
Mhm.
later. We built it into the core tech, so it enables us to activate it.
Mm.
So that's been a kind of fun discovery. So we're in the process of exploring what that looks like as well.
Yeah, I mean, back to your point about you have to remain agile, and the fact that participated in this program meant you were open to the feedback that was going to come your way, which I think cannot be sort of like understated or undervalued. Like,
Oh,
the importance of seeking that credible feedback and taking it in and saying, okay, well, this is a little bit different than maybe what we thought the approach would be, but you know, I think that's I would love to know also what um after your experience with the panel that week with the program and then you stayed on for Colorado Startup Week,
yeah.
what have you now that it's been a few weeks since then, maybe I don't know, the dust has settled. I don't know that it's settled in my brain yet, but
Yeah.
what what did you get from some of those conversations in addition to the things you've already talked about that you plan to implement or maybe that were a little bit different than you expected?
Okay. Oh, well, there was a couple of things I was thinking
There was
about.
a lot of loaded there was a lot of
No,
questions
there
in
was
that.
yeah, Colorado Startup Week. So I had come into the landing program because I mentioned it was a bit last minute.
Yeah.
I'd come in, I had, I reckon, one sort of tentative meeting. I had to be at a couple of sessions. I was on Oz Denver invited us onto a panel, which is really great. So
Yeah.
it's good to see the Aussies representing as well in Colorado. But I'd come in with not a very busy schedule at all. I ended up being back to back. So sessions people wanted me to come to and meetings. And so that was really lovely. But I think the underpinning part of that was the kindness of people to do introductions
Mm.
and that willingness to go, how do we set you up well?
Yeah.
We're invested in you. Some people I've been building connections and relationship with over this year. So this is my third trip to Denver this year, but it was really genuine. There was just
Mhm.
brand new people I'd bumped into. Part of it is I try and hold a posture of being willing to get back as well or to
Mhm.
engage. So that was really lovely. And
Yeah.
then uh, one of the other, I hope this is slightly amusing to me anyway. So I have grown up, love American television, um, snow days. I like skiing,
Yeah.
but there's not heaps of access to snow where I'm based in Australia. But during the mentoring program, someone was explaining to us about snow days. And I was sitting there going, I don't know why this is relevant to us because we're not talking about school kids.
Yeah.
No, this is something that adults, like it becomes part of your work as it's a defined holiday option in the work setting. And so this is my new favorite thing right now. And so I'm trying to work out from a HR because we'll have software development team in Australia and go to market in the US and then
Mhm.
as we expand further. But I'm looking at a way to have the snow day as an option, but
Mm.
I want quality across all the teams. So how do I make, so how do we define that in the HR setting?
That's right.
So
That's right, like
yeah,
siblings who are like, "Wait, she got a bigger present than I did for her birthday." Yeah. It's just
yes,
isn't it kind of like having children, having employees?
absolutely. Yes. And you know what? And you want to love everyone equally. And at the same time, I just think, and this maybe goes to some of the little, humor that we have in our brand, but the idea of like we're in Adelaide, we don't get snow.
Mhm.
The idea of having a snow day in an employment
Yeah.
contract, but defining what that looks like, for this local context, I
Yeah.
just think sounds funny. So,
Well,
yeah.
hey, there's your differentiator. It's like, "Here's why you wanna come work with us." We have snow days when it's, I don't know, are you in Celsius or degrees?
We're
Or
Celsius, but yeah,
Fahrenheit, I
there's
should say.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, we'll have the conversions as well because
Okay,
we'll have teams where we
that's
wanna make
right.
sure we're not confusing.
That's right.
Yeah, because 'cause I've been a few times I've double taped going, "A 100 what? Oh, that's
Yeah.
right."
That's right. Very hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
no, I'm actually glad that you brought up sort of the humor in your brand because I actually wrote down one of the quotes from your website that made me actually laugh. Um, "Are you lucky enough to have a ragtag bunch of misfits who join you on your marketing adventures?" And I just love that because first of all, I really appreciate when any person, let alone any company or brand, doesn't take themselves so seriously because at the end of the day, like, you're this should be fun, right? So I'm curious though, like, does that sort of branding, like that sort of, I guess, casual verbiage, is there any way that it's not translating here in the US, or have you come up against anything that's like you need to be a more, more polished or
yeah, and part of I think sometimes knowing your company or what you wanna stand for, we decided from the get-go that we wanted professionalism and a level of corporate culture because that's what both our co-founders we come from. But we wanted a hint of humor, and a part of that was also from our leadership experience, and it sat around something, I'm gonna quote a couple of things from something that Harvard, Business Review published, but they were talking about Gallup did a US employee engagement survey, and it was talking about the disconnected employees. So they're disconnected, bored, and engaged, and especially younger workers and women.
Mm.
So most unhappy in the workplace. And I think we're seeing that globally. I don't think that's distinctively American.
Yeah.
The other, so that's, in terms of is it representative, that's come out of a US study,
Mm.
but we're seeing the same things in Australia, UK, Canada, a lot of the Western
Mhm.
type workplaces.
Yeah.
Another survey came out from Oxford University in England found happy workers are 13% more productive.
Mm.
And so, because culture investment is so important to us, this was our way of going, how do we infuse? We've got the productivity down pat. We've
Yeah.
got corporate marketing and strategy planning, campaigns, content. Tell me what to do next so that there's an ecosystem that grows. We know that.
Yeah.
But where is the lightheartedness to go? How do we bring joy into the day?
Mhm.
And so we've tried to tuck that in wherever we go. I also watch movies where I love a good Easter egg tucked in. So that's why the website's got a few of
Yes,
those.
I found one.
Yeah, yeah, and but part of it is really we have something that comes out weekly, dashboards for users, and it's weekly inspiration. So sometimes it's a serious quote, but we do tuck in a bit of humor. We do quote some of my favorite movies and all the characters, and so. But the idea is that how do we bring in a bit of levity into the day,
Yeah.
and that's our part. But
Yeah.
even when we run workshops and programs, you'll hear I'll joke. So in terms of translation, I think it's helped considerably that I've lived and worked in the
Yeah.
US, um, and I've trained on American television.
Yeah.
But
Me
I
too.
don't. Yeah, yeah. But I don't know it all, and so part of this is, we're coming, we're setting up go-to-market teams in the US, and part of that will be going, how do we work with our teams? But we'll hire with this, cultural undertone,
Yeah.
very important, but we will get our teams to help us with that too. So yeah, that's part
Yeah.
of the
No, I love that. And I was, you sort of like led me to my follow-up question to that, which is like, you know, I think there's a big struggle with people, working from home. Everything is remote, not everything, but so many people are still working in remote
Mm.
positions, even if their companies are local. And there's a struggle to maintain a certain culture because of that. So now you're talking about expanding globally. What sort of intentional things do you keep in place for your employees or your team to maintain that culture?
Yeah, and so know that we're starting small. We're small now,
Yeah.
but we have scale. Um, I think some of that comes from our past experiences in leadership roles. So I've chaired large organizations, like 1,000+ employees, and then I've been in advisory roles in big and small companies, and I think from that, has shown us how important culture is.
Mhm.
And I read this once, and it talked about culture being like a 3-year change.
Mm.
So what if we could start with a healthy culture from day one? And so for us, a big part is, and we live and breathe this out in the day to day. And Jason, who runs all the tech side of things, we've mapped what this looks like
Right.
in both hiring as well as what is a practical outworking of our company values, for example,
Yeah.
in the job. Like, what does it look like to be living that out? And so we've been very deliberate in being able and mapping out who we are, what we do, why we're different. What is our purpose? So our purpose, we want I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up
Yeah.
because it's nice and slightly representative. But our purpose is to democratize access to effective marketing and empower businesses to grow their revenue, customers, and brand by replacing complexity, cost, and guesswork with intelligent, goal-aligned automation.
Mm.
And I mean, in a nutshell, it's democratizing access to growth marketing. We
Yeah.
want companies to be just, let's take that stress off the table for you,
Yeah.
make it accessible. But we do that. Our values are anchored in working with integrity. So we want to do the right thing. And that goes into the coding, that goes into how we engage with customers.
Mm.
The next one is we respect people, so your team and ours. And so we extend understanding and flexibility wherever we can, but we're pursuing success.
Yeah.
And then the last one, I learned this actually from an amazing mentor I had in California, um, making other people the heroes. So our mindset is that it's not about us, but we want to actively have an outward look about how do we recognize others. And
Mm.
so that posture we're bringing in from the beginning.
Yeah.
We also believe in going, okay, that sounds high level. What does it mean in the day to day? So, we've got our, here's how it looks. We've got examples of what that looks like when you're coding, when you're working with
Mm.
a team, when you're doing a marketing activity, what will and what we do in those kind of areas. And so
Yeah.
the idea is that we can both have a base level tone that we set and a culture that we want to build on, but it gives people the flexibility based on their own characteristics and working style and thought diversity is amazing. How do you put that into practice? And
Yeah.
so hopefully it's a, defined framework for going, here's what we want to live out.
Yeah. It's so cool. I feel like a majority of the people that I talk to and that I work with are solopreneurs, are working in a very sort of like small small ecosystem, small realm, and that's great, and they may not even have a desire to expand beyond that. And so a lot of the conversations that we have are about like people sign up to work with you because of who you are, not because,
Mm.
you have the best product or class or whatever. And I think um, the maybe potential challenge or danger in trying to assign that same sort of um, quality to a bigger company is like the leadership has to honestly and authentically live that life and put these things in place. It doesn't just happen. So I really appreciate like your diligence and how deliberate you are with that. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, Jason and I have talked about this a lot. And so he's, from a techie point of view, just very, very traditional stereotype of a software engineer.
Mhm.
And one of the things we said from day one is, what does that posture look like? And it would be that when we talk about celebrating team, that we are willing to, even if it's not outward, on the inside, you're going like this when someone's doing something great in a meeting.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, he was like, "Wait, what?" And I go, "No, but that, how do we have that as our posture and thinking so
Mm.
that it applies in the day-to-day?" But part of that means that you're looking to celebrate. It's not that you're hearing it and going, "What have I got to do next?" And so teaching some of that, just practical things is part of how we want to grow team. And that does mean that we're going to be hiring, um, not only strictly for have you ticked all the boxes from these skills and experience
Yeah.
levels, but we want that cultural fit. So
Yeah, and which I would argue is much more difficult to find.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. And I think, but I believe in transferable skills as well. So sometimes people might have an area where we can train them up in. I believe it. How do we invest in a person and grow them in a role? And
Yeah.
so and some of that I think has come from, and this is the best bit of, I'm into my career. I've been able to experience things and go, hey, I feel like we've got a bit of a luxury to go, here's what we really want to do.
Yeah.
Now, is it going to work? I imagine there's going to be so many hurdles and obstacles along the way, but that's the enthusiasm we bring to it, but also the grounding going, we know that culturally
Yeah.
organizations that set this in place, yeah, do well. So,
Yeah. Is there any, like, one hurdle or obstacle that would just shut down the moving forward, in the US marketplace?
well, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that we always anticipate. So we have risk management, and adjustment to going, if this and this and this happens.
Yeah.
Most in the media at the moment, you would seen around tariffs and other things with international expansion. So there is this great organization that is under the US Department of Trade Administration. It's called Select USA. So they very much are reminded. So the focus is, how do we bring investment into America?
Mm.
But it means that, so they do this conference once a year in May, annually, and we attended earlier this year. The idea is, it's for the betterment of different counties and cities and states around the US, but it helps pair up or mat. If you want to research, there's an openness to bring people together. And
Mm.
so, although it is perceived, like I've had people go, why would you consider the US now? Because there's a lot of conversation in the media. Actually not, deterred,
Mm.
because we've had so many different pathways and access points in. I think sometimes, so, and marketing is part of that media,
Yeah.
but I think sometimes there's a lot of story. But when you really look under, go a bit deeper,
Yeah.
there is great opportunity. Yes, there's definitely harder for certain sectors.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, for us, we just continue, both we do have a risk
Yeah.
like approach to going, is this practical or not? But in terms of a lot of that grounding, we're big believers in business planning, financial modeling.
Yeah.
What does it look like for a market space? And then having trigger points going, this trigger would tell us this is not viable, or there's a
Mhm.
date, or if we haven't achieved ABC, do we pivot? So that just brings in some of that, the practical business thinking.
Yeah.
We do have markers for ourselves to go, hey, at this point, here's where we want to be.
Yeah.
If we're not, then we have that conversation. What does pivot look like? So
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
Um, you sort of just touched on this, but I guess, like, how do you balance, the data, the actual data that
yeah,
you're collecting as you go, which sounds like you're doing a lot
yeah,
of,
yeah.
and just, like, the intuition of, you know, we really wanna make this work? Where do you
Yeah.
reconcile those 2?
Yeah. So, well, again, the co-founder. So I'm 80%, Jason's
Mm.
20. We both have the nice, like, same approach to this too. And so one of our rules is no regrets.
Mm.
So we don't want to say we should have done something. both of us, and this is that we've both got quite a different approach to working and leadership, but we're aligned on a few key areas. And one of the other ones is, how do we make a decision? And so we take as much information as we possibly can, but we make a decision at a point, because if not, we sit in inaction.
Yeah.
So it's about, how do we go with the information we have at hand,
Yep.
make a decision to get moving, and then we're always open and checking against that to go, do we need to pivot out?
Yeah.
But that's been really quite a freeing way to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're
So,
absolutely right. The episode that just came out last week is about perfectionism, and like you wait
yeah,
and wait and wait until everything is perfect, but and also by whose standards, then
Yes.
either the opportunity has passed, your desire to do it has passed, there's no demand for it, whatever, a number of things could happen. Or someone else has already grabbed up that spot, which
yeah.
so yeah, you do.
Absolutely. And relating it back to the data, that we both of us love data
Mm.
and can get like, oh, I could go down a data path, as Jason does sometimes. So we're like, all right, come back out.
Yeah.
But
Pull you out of this rabbit hole.
yeah, but I mean, because it's so fascinating. You can also read into things too, like that's information is not there, or you don't have a big enough sample space. But this is where we've used a lot of market data. We've met with companies in the marketplace, and we want real world experience. So both anecdotal as well as number
Mhm.
driven data points. Um, but yeah, there's that fine line of being lost in that versus how do we practically apply it.
Yeah.
So very much big on that data backing. Like, I'd probably say we rely more on data,
Yeah.
but also going, we have rules for ourselves to go, let's just
Yeah.
make a decision and get going.
Yeah, and it's awesome that, you 2 are so aligned. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's a huge factor, is making sure that if you're gonna have a partner, in any capacity, that the alignment is there before you move forward with anything.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask is, like, let's say, I signed up to be a beta tester, or, you were ready to launch, and I was going to be an officially signed up user. What would the process look like? Like, what, what would I input? What would I expect from, the software? And yeah, walk me through
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Well, we've already talked about
We have.
how, yeah. So we're building out pilot customers actually in the US for the bigger version. We're about to launch our conversational agentic AI component in the
Yes.
tech. But in terms of onboarding, a big part, and this is where we've evolved, this is from conversations and research in the US marketplace, we've actually tightened up even further our onboarding process.
Hmm.
So companies will come into the website. There's a couple of sign-in pages. We just require a URL, so your website address.
Hmm.
At this stage, we're not able to process if you, say, just have an Instagram handle at this stage. But that, because it gives us a starting point to understand your company.
Yeah.
And so that carries you through. In a couple of minutes, you can sign up. We will generate for you based on, we've got some different data points that we assess. You'll have a campaign to get going with in a few minutes. So we used to always joke around and go, it's marketing in minutes.
Hmm.
It's not about doing marketing quickly, but we know that people just want to get going and go, I just want to give it a try. So
Yeah.
that's the idea. And so things literally that have taken hours and hours and hours and days, we're distilling down to go, how do you get moving fast? And the more you input, so we talked about the foundations, we have in the background running for you. So you'll have this in your dashboard. It's called the fundamentals. You can add extra information, but we give you the quick information to get going, what we believe is correct for your brand. So we extrapolate your target audiences. We go, here's a high level summary about your company, your industries, and details around calls to action and
Yeah.
what we believe you're wanting to elicit out. Is this correct? Give it a tick, and then off
Mm.
it goes. Or go ahead and edit it. But the idea is it learns with you and grows. And
Mm.
so we want it to be both cross purpose, where you don't have to think about, am I building out strategy and a nice profile and a healthy profile for my brand? Because
Yeah.
we just get you to do the quick things.
Yep.
You can go put in a lot more detail if you want, but the idea then is over time it'll make recommendations. So you've told me you're chasing growing your brand on social platforms or from indexing and SEO and even being found in LLMs like
Mhm.
that kind of thing. You tell us those goals, then it'll make recommendations. So it's not
Mm.
bombarding users, and so big part is you can come out with a campaign, core messaging to get going
Yeah.
in say 15 minutes or so. And we're right now offering access to pilot to onboarding, so you'll get a person to
Mm.
take you through the onboarding.
That's nice.
So later that'll be all videos. Um, but yeah, so that's a
Great.
starter, and then so that's the very first like the core package that we do, and that's where I talked about earlier about wanting to make marketing accessible.
Mhm.
So that simple, you can work at your pace. If you don't have the people resourcing, or it's right now it's $58 a month.
Yep.
If you don't, it like that just gets you going, but you get access to all the great things. And there's even a section we've left on for now. You just ask a marketing person for advice on a question, and that's all included.
Hmm.
Or alternately, we have companies now taking up. We have the marketing support. You've got a marketing specialist as well. You get a few hours a month, and
Yep.
it supports your broader team, because sometimes you will have maybe what the composition we've typically got is there'll be someone from the executive or business owner, a marketing person, and then maybe graphics or sales or someone else who wants to be involved.
Yeah.
We can meet those teams, and we've got different specialists as well who, in different areas. But that way you get time with a real person,
Mhm.
which I still AI is amazing, but I think that's really important in this season. SaaS is a great way to make software accessible,
Yeah.
but we don't want to lose that people side of it. And so there's a few different ways to access that. So for onboarding, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then the ongoing, and part of this is going, what is marketing is not one quick activity and that's the end. The idea is that this is
No
part of
kidding.
your business. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting how often though we do find companies, because there's so much hype around try this, try that. If it's not right for your business, your customer base, what you're offering, your geographic region, and so many other your budget even, but certain things aren't right. And so
Yeah.
what is it can do? What's practical for you to do to help you grow? And it's, I love all of your fitness analogies, like, and that's true. Like this is a race,
Yeah.
so we pace it,
Yep.
but it's not. You can't just do it today and go, all right, I'm done now for the year.
Right. That would
You
be
know,
so nice, though.
yeah.
So if you could make that sort of like your next version, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Because and listen, I've got to confess, I'm up and down with my fitness regime right now with my time availability. So yeah, if I could just bank everything,
Yes,
first
that's
week of the
right.
month,
You front load it.
but
Yeah.
yes, so far you can't. Yeah, but no, I will do this software. We have some of our customers only using it, like say every 2 weeks. They're doing about say half an hour of
Hmm.
time in it, but it's prepping them to get things done. It's not a massive time commitment either. But
Well, and if
yes,
that's a half hour of, really good quality work that translates and gives them a return, then that's
yeah,
better than obviously better than nothing. And it's also better than
yeah.
2 hours a day of just like, what do they say? Throwing spaghetti at the wall, which I don't like that. That's very messy. Luckily, we're out of that toddler phase. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I do. I have heard that panko do they make panko breadcrumbs? Is there a technique that I've read about where they throw it at the wall? That's part. I don't know. Anyway, there's
a
some other food
panko?
that's okay to throw at walls. I think it's part of the
I
process.
mean,
I'll look it up.
that's a lot
Yeah.
cleaner. Yeah, we'll look it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if someone is listening and they're thinking, whether to expand globally or just think bigger than maybe they have been, what are, a few things that someone could do to just sort of get the ball rolling to know whether this is something to pursue?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always go, what are your goals? So write down what are you wanting to achieve. If we go, I'm a big believer in big horizon thinking, but then what are the practical steps to get there?
Mhm.
Because that's part of setting ourselves up to succeed in this. But knowing what are you wanting to achieve? So if you're just wanting to do marketing, which that in itself, I would say, I mean, I very much love marketing, but I want you to be thinking bigger for your business. Like
Mhm.
maybe it is that you want to grow your revenue because you want to hit a number of customers or a dollar, like a revenue bracket,
Yeah.
because that trickle down effect means that you'll have a greater impact in market, maybe sense of safety with ongoing revenue coming in, or it might mean that that net profit line boosts a little bit more.
Mhm.
And so I think having that kind of thinking, but then bolting it backwards and going, well, what does that mean then for me to grow by, say, 20% of customers? It could just be that you say, I want to grow 10 customers. But then that working backwards from a marketing perspective is really exciting because then you go, okay, well, what kinds of things could I try? But you're not saying, I'm just going to pick up, let's say, a social platform and go wild and creating content. You've got a purpose behind
Yeah.
what you're trying to attract because that impacts your messaging. And so I think goal setting from a business point of view, and that's where strategy is really important.
Mhm.
Um, and it's interesting. I think a lot of people don't know where to start with marketing strategy. I think most people are comfortable with numbers and
Mm.
going, here's my revenue goals or customer goals or expansion goals. I want to go into a region. Start with that.
Mhm.
And marketing needs to be connected to those goals. And it actually makes the marketing so much more effective when it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'd say goal setting, um, and I love a good stretch goal. But sometimes, from a budgeting point of view, when there's a lot of unknown, I
Mhm.
think having a good, better, best
Mm.
kind of approach to it too, if you can, is really powerful. So that's the forward thinking. In Australia, we have a different financial year to the US.
Mm.
So there's another difference
Oh,
that
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
adjusting calendar years. I miss that, so it makes much more sense to me. But so whenever you do your budgeting for the coming year, if that's not a rhythm you've been into doing,
Mhm.
do that because, you know, I say this now, but I think my kids tell me it's because I'm old, but I go, I just don't know where the year went. Like it just
Yeah.
moves so fast. And so I think similarly in business, like before we know it, we're at the end of the month and we're doing reconciliation and
Yep.
dealing with all those activities. And similarly in business, end of the month, quarter, and then, half a year's gone by. So what is it that you want to achieve? And then what does it look like in, you know, 6 monthly or even monthly increments to hit that? And what does success look like in those
Mhm.
stages? So
Yeah.
that's often a simple starting point to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to mention how we're recording this on October 6th, and does that mean you have been listening to Christmas music for 6 days already?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Do
Yeah,
you
Mariah
have
and Harry was cracked out. Look.
of all the songs,
Yeah, yeah.
is
So
is that your go-to song to kick off the Christmas song season?
it now is, and I think I've bought into the commercial hype, but I love Christmas music. I think I really like happy music and I love Christmas time. I love all the scents and, smells and foods. And I was in Denver the other week. I've realized I'd never had was it pumpkin spiced
Uh,
beverages?
Pumpkin
But
spice
I have
everything.
Yankee.
Yeah.
Yeah, well I have Yankey candles, which I always
Oh,
put on in I was in
so
Australia and
good.
I go, this smells like American Christmas, or I had tried they were doing sample cups. I was at Starbucks and I got a little pumpkin. I'm like, "Oh, actually, I understand this hype now. It's delicious."
I
Whereas, yeah,
know. Hmm.
we in Australia, I mainly make pumpkin soup, which is
Ooh,
like a
yeah.
savory, like a butternut pumpkin soup. So I don't
Yeah.
make piles of sweet things with it. So,
Okay.
but yes, so yeah, the Christmas stuff's been going on. But yes, but not my whole household does not love that.
I was
So
gonna ask, how do your kids feel about it?
one kid's very supportive, one is, like, happy with me. So
Okay. You won't name names.
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I have one who, has also adopted this because I've been bringing it earlier and earlier. But yes, I'm owning 1st of October now, and I go, "It's in my car," because it feels wasteful to have a whole genre of music that only gets isolated to, let's just say, December. So I'm spreading it around the year.
Wasteful is not the word that I would use, but I appreciate your commitment to this.
I can send you my playlist. I've got my Spotify list.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining me today. I was going to say joining us, but it's just me. So thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. It's been great to see you again.
Yes, you too. Come back to Denver again soon.
I am. I'm on my leg.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, and
Yeah.
for those who are listening and want to check out Amplifyo's website, it's amplifyo.com, which I will link in the show notes. And Julie is offering a awesome discount for listeners of the show. First 2 months, a discount of 15%. So email me at leslie@thefitnessofbusiness.com for the discount code. Now, Julie, we start each episode with our Hey Coach segment, and we end each episode by asking my guest this question. So, on the podcast, we basically talk about how entrepreneurship is a workout. What's one business strength or habit you wish you had developed earlier in your career?
Oh, oh, I think I know what that is. I think leaning into accountability. I do really well when I work out, when I have got someone who either I've told them about it, so then I have to get out of bed at 6 a.m., or I'm alongside. So where, and I don't think I valued what that was, or to ask someone to join me. Often people want that
Yes.
request, and they're really happy to join in. I think if I'd leaned into that earlier, um, and not been too I think I was really timid early in
Mm.
career as well. But yeah, I am better with other people, and I aim to give back as well. But yeah, I think it's that accountability and connection to
Yeah.
bring people on with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think often as you're saying that, like people might want the same thing, but someone has to be the one to initiate it. And it's usually pretty well received because they're like, oh, I could really use that too. I'm so glad you suggested it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
figured it out.
Yeah, and then, like, maybe it like, one of the other bits for me is I've been doing this because 'cause I'm traveling to the US is where we've been researching where we base out, and then 'cause it's your international expansion conversation, one of the things I have a big rule about is, when I land in a new city and the time zone's all messed up, I've gotta stay awake till the evening to try and get into the rhythm, and so I have a rule, and because often with the US, we land very early in the morning.
Yeah.
We've gotta go out. So if I go walking and I go very far away, I have to be able to make it back. Whereas if I go to the hotel, like, I've got no choice.
They do have
So
Uber here, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yes, I did. I have enjoyed that, and I jumped in Waymos when I was in San Francisco, which was
Oh.
a world experience, and,
Yes.
yes, and there's scooters everywhere. But
Yep.
I think so, and I think similarly with, from an exercise point of view, just getting out and going and pushing yourself a little bit further. I do the same in business, going, how do we just get going?
Mm-hmm.
And then set it a little bit further, or just go, okay, if I can get to here, I know it's going to impact and be beneficial for me. So yeah, it's just that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy. I mean, what is the theory of, I don't know, something an object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll
Also,
edit that.
there's something to do with whatever's happening with time zones. And he was saying, did hear you say what date it was? I have to tell you, I'm in the future right now
Oh, that's
because it's
right.
7th.
So
So yes, I've been listening to Christmas music a little longer,
you are
just to confess
you
as well.
even further justified and supporting your obsession.
That's it. Yeah, this is it.
What is it?
I listened. I mean, I think sometimes it's not as, you know, society doesn't love the Christmas music listeners as much, but I'm so happy.
Who cares what society thinks? It makes you
Maybe.
happy.
Yeah, yeah, this is it. Yes, do try and limit my exposure to stress people out with the tunes.
Well, that's
But
very
anyway,
kind of you.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. And for those of you listening, if you like today's episode, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and submit your Hey Coach questions to Leslie@thefitnessofbusiness.com. See you next time.